the child wrongly sentenced to die at 14. Imagine being just 14 years old and hearing a judge sentence you to death, not because of solid evidence, not because of a fair trial, but because the system saw you as guilty before the trial even began. This is the story of George Stinney Jr., the youngest person in modern U.S. history to be executed for a crime he did not commit. The year was 1944. In a small town in South Carolina, two young white girls, Betty June Binnicker, 11, and Mary Emma Thames, 7, were found brutally murdered. The town demanded answers. Within hours, police arrested George Stinney Jr., a 14-year-old black boy who had simply been seen talking to the girls earlier that day. George was small for his age, weighing barely 90 pounds. But in the eyes of the law, he became the perfect scapegoat. The trial that followed was nothing short of a nightmare. George was interrogated alone, without his parents or a lawyer present. He was questioned for hours, and the police later claimed he had confessed. But there was no written statement, no signed confession. When the case went to trial, the courtroom was filled with an all-white jury. The trial lasted just 3 hours. George's court-appointed lawyer called no witnesses in his defense. He barely cross-examined the prosecution. And the jury? They deliberated for only 10 minutes before declaring George guilty of murder. The punishment? Death by electric chair. At just 14 years old, George Stinney Jr. became the youngest person in America to be sentenced to die in the 20th century. On June 16, 1944, George was led to the electric chair. He was so small that the guards struggled to fit him into the chair designed for grown men. They had to stack a Bible under him just so the electrodes could reach his head. Moments later, a 14-year-old child was executed, and the truth died with him, at least for decades. But the story didn't end there. For years, activists, historians, and George's family fought to clear his name. They uncovered evidence that pointed to another suspect. They proved that George's so-called confession had been coerced, and that he never stood a chance in that courtroom. Finally, in 2014, 70 years later, a South Carolina judge vacated George Stinney Jr.'s conviction. The court admitted what the world already knew. George had not received a fair trial. The youngest person executed in modern U.S. history had been innocent all along. George Stinney's story is more than a tragedy. It's a reminder of how quickly justice can fail and how prejudice can destroy innocent lives. A child was executed, not because of proof, but because of fear, hate, and injustice. So I'll leave you with this question. Backhand index pointing right. Do you think the system has truly changed since 1940?